Hi, my name is Rob Nelson. I'm the author of the CKwargs Project as well as Sagebox. This is part 3, adding a keyword to the CKwargs Project, which is pretty simple. In the previous video, I showed how we can create symbolic keywords instead of default parameters, and how we can use these keywords as scoped keywords, such as the DKW namespace here, or as unscoped when we say using the namespace. And we can use as many or as few keywords as we want. And so when we run it, we get the same output that we would with default parameters, but with our keywords instead. So now when I just change OpenBox keyword to true and run it, now we have an open rectangle. So now let's add a new keyword called angle and set it to 45 initially. And to do that, we're going to want to edit the keyword.h and CPP file to add this new keyword definition. But before we do that, let's go ahead and add this keyword to our DrawBox function. So to do that, let's just copy OpenBox and change it to angle and set the keyword to angle. And let's set the default to 0. Now I'm going to change this to 0.0 to make it a double. And I'm going to get back to this in a couple minutes after I get it working. So just as before, we pick a somewhat arbitrary keyword and we search for it so that we can find it in the project, and then we can change things from there. So now in mykeywords.h, all we have to do is copy OpenBox and add a new definition, number 5, and change it to angle. And I'm going to go ahead and add a comment for this. And then after that, we need to add a type. And so what we do is we just copy the previous type and add type number 5, which in this case for our angle is a double. So now all we have to do is copy and paste these new definitions in about 4 or 5 places down here. So here I'm just going to copy CKwargs key from 4 to 5, and then same thing with check item. Make sure we get the slash on the end. And so now we just have 2 more places, key values and key values pointer, and now we're ready to edit the mykeywords.cpp file and add our keyword there. So I'm going to click on the search list to get over to mykeywords.cpp and copy OpenBox just as we did before and enter angle. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing in the definition. This is our code, and add angle. And in this case, we have a type of a double, so we want to do that. And now we're ready to add the angle in our last file, which is our .h file, mykeywords.h. So I'm going to click on the search list again to get over to the h file, and then I'm going to copy OpenBox just as before, and I'm going to change it to angle, keeping in mind that our type is a double for angle, and then f angle is arbitrary since it's the interface. And then I can also add a comment, so when we use angle, we can see what the keyword does. And so now we are 100% done adding our angle keyword, and now we can use it. So let's go to mykeywords.cpp to make sure we compile. So now that we're compiled, we know that it all works. So now when we enter angle prefixed by DKW, it tells us what the keyword does. So let's set it to 45, and we can also get rid of the DKW since we're using the namespace above. Now I'm going to get back to that 0.0 I mentioned. So when I compile the program, it compiles just fine. But if I change this to a plain 0, we get an error. And the reason is because get is a template interface, and it can't really resolve it well. One way that we can deal with it is to explicitly state that we want to use a double in the template interface, or we can just specify 0.0 so that it can implicitly resolve the value. So something to keep in mind for future reference. But here I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the 0 altogether, because with the 0, angle comes back with a double, but without the 0, angle comes back with a standard optional, which is pretty useful because it allows us to determine whether we want to use the keyword or not based on whether it was even specified. So here I can put angle in a conditional block and only use this code if angle was specified as a keyword. So when angle is specified, I can do all of these transforms, but when angle isn't specified as a keyword, I can just go ahead and avoid all this processing time. And then at the bottom, I'll just go ahead and release all the transformations regardless, because it doesn't really take any time to do that. So now when we compile and run it, the box is rotated at 45 degrees because of the angle keyword that we used in our call to DrawBox. So now we can do some interesting things like sync it to the vertical resync, so we can change the keyword value that we're sending through angle to animate the rotation of the box. So now we have a spinning box. So let's clean this up a little bit to kind of show just a couple keywords in action here as we change it. So let's get rid of border size and border color, because these are just the defaults anyway. And so now we're left with OpenBox and angle, which better shows how angle is being changed dynamically. So that's really it in adding our angle keyword. Actually, half of the video was just using the actual keyword itself rather than defining it. And to remember that we're using the DKW namespace. In these small applications where you only have a couple keyword usages, it might be better to use the namespace. Again, that's really an optional thing. So that's it for this video. As you can see, it's a pretty simple procedure to add a keyword. As I mentioned, half of the video was actually just using the value of the keyword and had really nothing to do with actually implementing the keyword. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you around in other videos.